And again, I have no proof. I see no evidence other than the vote counts. I want to make that clear. But I believe, but having a belief is not enough to start an investigation. There's got to be some sort of evidence somewhere. But my belief is, and maybe someday we will find out, but my belief is that there probably was enough voter fraud to swing the outcome of the election. Would Mitt Romney still have been able to win if there was no voter fraud? Possibly not, but I think it would have been a lot closer. Because you have too many people that are voting themselves a check every month from the Treasury. We've often heard people who are far smarter throughout history than we have been have said over and over again, when a democracy is doomed when the people realize they can vote themselves a paycheck from their Treasury. And that's what we have going on now. Plain and simple. Thank you, Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They laid the foundation for the self-destruction of the United States of America because they were anti-constitutional. Angus King, speaking of Maine, explains his decision to join with Senate Democrats. Now, see, you guys in Maine. Now, Angus, I don't know he's going to caucus with Democrats, but he's an independent. No, he's not. He's a socialist through and through. It's kind of like Sanders of Vermont. He's a communist. Who the hell do you think he's going to caucus with? You people keep falling for this stuff. It's kind of like Jesse Jackson Jr. Being reelected in Illinois, but he's probably going to he's going to be forced to lose his seat and resign and might go to jail. Well, I guess that's pretty typical in Illinois. How many governors and national leaders like senators and representatives, congressmen that have gone to jail for corruption in the state of Illinois? Am I wrong? I don't know the numbers on this, but am I wrong in saying that Illinois, based on the number of elected officials that have gone to jail, that Illinois is the most corrupt state in the union? Or is that title still belong to Rhode Island? I don't know the actual. I mean, we'd have to look. If it really mattered, we'd have to look up the number. But if they're not number one, they're in the top three. They got to be. Because every time you turn around, somebody in Illinois is going to jail. That was elected. And it seems like of late they're being elected, and then they're being caught, and then they're being forced to resign, and then they go to jail. It's not like they no longer are elected, so they've been out of power for a long period of time, for years or something, and then they do something stupid and illegal and go to, no, they get caught doing something illegal while they're in power, and they end up going to jail. And no, I'm not saying that Angus King is, Angus was the former governor of Maine, but I'm not saying that, that he's corrupt. I don't know the man really. I don't pay too much attention to what goes on in Maine or Vermont. I do pay attention a little bit of what happens in Massachusetts, because it seems like if something negative happens in Massachusetts, it forces people who live in Massachusetts to flee north of the border into New Hampshire. So yeah, I kind of pay attention to that. I often beg people, don't vote for idiots, and they don't listen. They didn't listen this time. I know we got Scott Brown, who's a total idiot anyway, but, they were better off with Scott Brown over Elizabeth Warren. I know my state would be better off with Scott Brown versus Elizabeth Warren, but we can't vote. Not legally. We can't vote down there. But well, it's true. It may sound funny, but it's true. New Hampshire would have been better off if Massachusetts had elected Scott Brown over Elizabeth Warren. That's just the truth. Republicans vote to ban contraception in Missouri for religious reasons. Yes, and this is a Examiner.com piece. And, they're all beside themselves, liberalness. Oh, no, we can't force the Catholics to give, provide abortions. That's terrible. Republicans in Missouri have voted to overturn the veto of Democratic Governor Jay Nixon that will now legally allow religious and moral exemptions in health insurance policies. Now, Democrats are calling it an assault on women. And Republicans say it allows people not to be forced to deny their faith, because now it's coming down to the point, well, you're a Catholic organization supported by the Catholic Church or Catholic dollars, but you're not allowed, according to Obamacare, you're not allowed to prevent to use your religion as a reason for denying certain things, or not denying, but not providing. So, you have a religion and you believe with all your religious organization, and your tenet is that life is sacred and that abortion is murder, and therefore you will not support it, but you're going to be forced to pay for it. How does that make any sense? I know there are arguments. Well, slavery was a religious argument, right? No, it wasn't. There's nothing. I have seen the biblical lines and paragraphs and books and chapters that they have tried to use to justify slavery, and when I read it, there's nothing about it. I don't know what the only thing that I can think of that may even come close is that Christ said, if you're a slave, be the best possible slave you can be. But in no way did Christ condone it. He also said, it doesn't matter if you're a slave or a free man. If you're working, be the best possible worker you can be for your employer. Be you slave or a free man. Christ didn't say, oh yeah, I approve of slavery. That's not in the Bible. So, but it does say that God creates life and God is the only one that can take it. So now it just comes to the point, well, when is it life? When is it a human life? And if we're going to naturally say that, life ends when there's no brain activity, well, then I think, you should be able to say, logically speaking, that life begins when there's brain activity in the womb. I mean, there's a compromise, and you talk about, compromising, but no, the left doesn't want to compromise at all. You see, we on the right, we try to compromise by saying, okay, life ends with no brain activity, right? Yeah, and they say, yeah, they all agree. They said, okay, then life begins with brain activity. Okay, yeah. Well, then there's brain activity in the second trimester. Well, no. That's still not a life. So they don't want to compromise unless you just happen to agree with them. I'm saying, if we're going to compromise, now I happen to believe that life begins at conception. But if we're going to compromise, and it's not, I can't believe that I'd even use this as an analogy to compromise on a human being's life, but if we're going to compromise, there's a compromise. They don't even want to do that. They want to force all of us, no matter what we believe, to be... I guess if it ever comes down, it's a good thing that people in Massachusetts voted down infanticide and others. What kind of society allows for that? That's just crazy. That's crazy talk. It's insanity. It's more than insanity. Most people in the U.S. will not be able to escape the fiscal cliff. A lot of people think that it's just only going to affect the wealthy. Well, everyone who pays an income tax, and even many who don't, will feel the effects of the fiscal cliff. So will people like doctors who accept Medicare. So will people who get unemployment checks. So will defense contractors, air traffic controllers, and if air traffic controllers are affected, so are those of us who fly. So are those of us who are on the ground under flying lanes. You know, that was one thing that I really took notice of at night when flying at night, looking down and seeing where we were, flying over and coming into airports and flying out of airports. There are people that live on the ground. There are houses all over the place. If a plane were to go down in a neighborhood, and planes have gone down in neighborhoods, it's devastating for a neighborhood. You may not ever fly in your entire life. Doesn't mean you can't be affected by an airplane. Wasn't that the premise of Donnie Darko? An airplane engine fell through fell from the sky and landed in his bedroom, on his bed. I think that was the whole premise of it. But stuff like that, stuff is falling from airplanes and falling off and landed in houses and businesses and churches and stuff like that over the years. So, hey, you're on the ground. You can be affected by what's happening in the sky, even if you're not near an airport. So, you affect air traffic controllers, your national parks, your park rangers, companies that do a lot of research and development. I mean, it's gonna affect all different layers of society, and even if you are one of the working poor for some of these industries, well, if there's less business, you might lose your job. If you're a janitor, you might lose your job. And then you're going to have reduced benefits and unemployment once you do lose your job. Yeah, look, it's not a good thing. And most of you people that voted for Obama, you didn't think about this. So even though we kept telling you, you didn't think about this kind of stuff. I know, it happens all the time. Happens all the time. But, it's too bad. The United States was once a great nation. It can still be a great nation if we just get people to stop being selfish and stop thinking about themselves for 30 seconds and actually think logically about what's best for the country. Because then what's best for the country, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. If we thought like that today, what John F. Kennedy, a Democrat, said, Barack Obama would not be president today. Plain and simple. There's no other way to put it, because they wouldn't have bought into this class warfare crap. Well, folks, I am out of time for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Well, goodbye. And don't think it hasn't been a little slice of heaven, because it hasn't.
I'm Rod Eccles. I'm out.